What is up, everybody? Welcome to the AllSooners Podcast. Wednesday, back on Wednesdays. Barely. It's November 15th. This is episode 222, so we are rolling with the deuces today. Ryan Chapman joining us for more. I'm John Hoover. I'm in Tulsa. Randall, parts unknown. He's going to hop on in the third segment to talk about recruiting. As Brent Venables might say, we're on to BYU. But we need to recap the West Virginia game real quick, right? What a bounce back, Ryan. We can put a bow on it, close the book on West Virginia, but what a bounce back for the Sooners. 31-6 lead late in the second quarter and held on to win that bad boy 59-20. Total dominance, complete performance by the Oklahoma offense, defense, and even a couple of special teams, although there was a special teams complaint.
Yeah, other than that, it's like huge jolt on both sides of the football, right? Defensively, obviously, getting Danny Stutzman back is huge. He looked his typical self, even if he didn't have to play every single snap. And alongside Kip Lewis, that looks like the linebacker duo that Oklahoma's going to rock with for certainly these last two games and whatever lies beyond, whether that be Big 12 carnage or simply maybe an outside shot of New Year's Six Bowl. I think Oklahoma's in great spot with whatever happens, unless maybe OSU wins the Big 12 and then neither them nor Texas are going. Like, I think that's how Oklahoma drops like the Alamo. Other than that, they look like they're in a great spot for a New Year's Six game. So I think you're going to see Stutzman and Kip Lewis, and you flip it over him. It just felt simple and easy on offense, right? Not a lot of bells and whistles, just Oklahoma throwing the ball downfield, throwing it downfield often. Getting great contributions from Gavin Sawchuk. And there's a lot of things that felt like people were asking for, right? Don't go side to side, just attack vertically. Run the football with both your running back and Dylan Gabriel. He picks up 8 total touchdowns. Nice day at the office for him. So I think who the question is just going to be the rest of the way. Oklahoma's defense stay healthy enough that that's the unit you see. Yes, then the defense should be in good shape to put in two strong performances. And then the offense, is that the offense you get for the next two games? Is one of these ones this week is hitting the road to weather conditions that might be pretty fuzzy?
Yeah. Where to start for me? Are we that smart as make-believe football coaches where we say stop running east to west, stop with the jet sweeps, and they do it, and it works brilliantly? Is it that simple? Is it that easy to be a football coach, to see what's working on the field and to do it, to see what's not working on the field and to stay away from it? Is it that easy?
Kelly Gregg would tell you so. I know I bring this up often, but old Kelly, he has a saying that he will bring up probably once a week, and it's football's a simple game made complicated by coaches, right?
Yep.
It's almost like, hey, guys, you picked 5 offensive linemen and just rolled with them, and the running game came together. You stopped all the cute crap, and you stopped getting yourself off schedule. And because you're on schedule, you weren't having to go warp speed, and all of a sudden these false starts stop. Like, yes, I think it was that simple, which is why the fan base was ready to riot at the door of Jeff Levy. And I think it was all deserved for the Kansas game and for Bedlam.
You could say the same thing in Stillwater about Mike Gundy. Stop toying around with your quarterback. Stop experimenting and throw the best guy out there. They did it, and look what they did. Stop goofing around with your running backs. You know who's the best running back on your team. They did it, and look what they did. Now, obviously, that backfired in Orlando, 45-3. They took the L there. But it is. It's not that complicated. Coaches really tend to overcomplicate things sometimes. Something that stuck out to me, a couple of numbers that I want to go through. West Virginia, 10 of 31 passing. I didn't have that on my bingo card. That's really good. And it was good defense. They ran it. They had some bad throws and some throwaways, but they ran into some good defense by Oklahoma, finished with 330 yards of total offense. On the flip side of that, Oklahoma had 644 yards total offense. Like I said, complete beatdown, holistic football, complimentary, both sides. But I have a question. Has Gavin Freeman lost his confidence? Not just running the jet sweep out of bounds for a 1-yard gain or a 1-yard loss, but has it bled over now into his punt return game? He fumbled 2 punt returns. You cannot fumble a punt return. That is 40 yards for the other team and a change of possession that you just got to stop. You're just getting ready to get the ball back, and you hand it right back to them. That's the worst case scenario other than like a pick six or something.
Yeah, well, we've seen him not make perfect decisions either earlier this year on when to field it versus when to let it bounce and go. It was very minor in the non-conference, didn't really hurt Oklahoma, but I'm just ready to see somebody else back there. The guy that I would go with hasn't been 100% healthy and he's been hobbled. He's been playing in a Peyton Bowen, but he hasn't been like we've seen the protective boot for a week or two, stuff like that.
Yep.
I think that might just need to hit a little reset button and get Gavin Freeman back into some spring and summer stuff to get that confidence back. Cause yeah, he's not shown the ability consistently on those jet sweeps to just put his foot in the ground, go upfield and decide when to go. And now even the punting game, one of them hurt Oklahoma, one of them didn't. But none of the punts he fielded after that looked confident either. And so whether it needs to be like people are going to roll their eyes at this, but when Lincoln Riley would just put somebody back there to fair catch it, the CD Lamb punt return unit, like that almost might be better for Oklahoma right now, just to stabilize for a couple of games, get in the off season and get that thing all sorted.
Yeah. My first thought was Drake Stoops, Mr. Reliable, right?
Yeah.
Go back there and catch the punt. If you get in, if you have some space, get us 5 yards, get us 10 yards, make a move and get us 15 yards. That's the way the coaching staff needs to approach maybe the punt return situation. Or, you're onto something too with Peyton Bowen, electrifying in high school. Absolutely, positively electrifying in Class 6A in Texas. So if you can do that there, you're probably going to have a chance to do it at Oklahoma.
Well, especially when you look at like some of the other candidates, Stoops, he's your number one wide receiver right now. So I understand if there's some hesitation about leaving your best guy out there to get smoked. Same with like a Billy Bowman, who is very, very explosive as well at Denton, across town, same stadium, but all that. Best safety, don't want to get him out there, get smoked. Jalil Farouk, your other big time wide receiver, don't want to get out there to get smoked. Okay, so if Peyton Bowen, if he's healthy, that would be the thing. Then he's a guy that you've seen Oklahoma confident with Key Lawrence, confident with Reggie Pearson, Robert Spears-Jennings has come on. It's a little bit less of a risk if you throw him out there. And I mean, I just want to see that dynamic Peyton Bowen that you saw all the time in high school. That's got to translate. Everything else from his game's translated to the college game. I don't see why his ability in the open field with the football would not translate for Oklahoma.
Two more things for you on the West Virginia game from me. They both have to do with the Oklahoma offensive rushing game, the OU ground game. All right. First is Dillon Gabriel ran the football 11 times, picked up, 50 yards and scored 3 touchdowns. Why do you think they didn't try that? I'm not talking about scrambling, running for your life. Why do you think they didn't? Why do you think they took him out? Remember the first 3 weeks of the season, Ryan, it was Dillon Gabriel would run with the football, and I'd be like, don't run your quarterback. You saw what happened to last year when he got hit in the head. He's not a great slider. He's been hit in the head several times, right? He got a concussion. He missed those 2 games. The team went in the tank. I was a very big opponent of do not run Dillon Gabriel, right? Now I've flipped. Now I've gone the other side of the coin, and I'm saying if you're going to have a successful running game, he's got to be a major part of it. And they didn't do it against Oklahoma State. They did not do it. And I asked Jeff Lebby that question in the post-game press conference. Was that simply not there against Oklahoma State? And he said, no, it was there. We did it. We got what we liked out of it. I'm sorry, but I disagree.
Well, as we know, Jeff Lebby just delivers an electric press conference. It's always very insightful. He does a great job. He really respects that whole process and answers those questions to the best of his ability. We know that. I think that against Kansas, they got such tunnel vision with Tawi Walker because they were having a lot of success there that it was almost like, why do we need to run with Dillon Gabriel when you can just line it up, block it up, and fire off the football with Tawi Walker? Against Oklahoma State, I do not know what was happening there. I think a lot of it might have been that they got off schedule so quickly. It felt like so many times with false starts and things like that they immediately started looking, instead of going, hey, on 2nd and 14, trying a quarterback draw play when you think that there might be a pass situation. They were just throwing the ball downfield. And when they were running the quote unquote normal offense, they were having a ton of success. If I had one little like critique of, and this is both from Oklahoma State and West Virginia, it's something that we've talked about in the press box. Like when they get to the plus side of the field at like the 40-ish yard line, and it's clear that they're in fourth down territory and it's like 3rd and 7. It feels like they always run a play just hoping to get to 4th and 2. And I'm like, hey, you're allowed to pick up the 3rd and 7. Like you can run. And that's where like I think Dylan Gabriel in the quarterback run game is huge. And I think we saw one of those plays against West Virginia. It was a 3rd and medium, 3rd and long. Dylan takes it. He ran off to the left. I think he was going to the south end zone. And he took it off the left side and he picked up a first down for Oklahoma. And that's where I was just like, look, whether you're A, giving yourself a chance with guys rolling downfield and he just truly tucks it, or B, it's like a design run. I think that one was a just read option pull. That's been a really, really good part of the running game. And look, I know that they've basically said, like, Brent Vittles didn't say this, but he said it, that Jackson Arnold's going to redshirt unless Dylan Gabriel gets hurt, pretty much. Like that's the, you have to assume that's the break glass. I don't know if it's in their mind, like, hey, we got this far, don't need to burn the red shirt or whatever, but like, just let Dylan run. He's a physical runner. He doesn't often put himself in bad spots except for like a really, really, really late slide, but he usually is good about,
or when he tries to run over somebody.
Yeah, that fall forward where he like absorbs the contact a little bit, which looks worse, but is often better than a late slide where you open yourself up to a targeting that is concussed, all that stuff. So I don't know is the better question, but like nothing about this offense has been picture perfect. There's always something that is working that just goes away randomly. And I think that's part about being a young offensive coordinator.
Dylan officially ran the ball one time for 7 yards against Oklahoma State. Sorry, one time for a loss of 7 yards. And it wasn't really a run. It was I've got to get on this fumble. Wasn't it? I think because they lost both of those fumbles.
No, it was the 3rd down, or no, it was the 4th down play after they ran the naked bootleg that was unsuccessful. Right. And he had to just basically clock that or scuff it into the turf. It was when the block on the backside was whiffed. Not going to name names, but we've covered it. And then he just had to eat a sack basically on 4th down.
Yeah. So the running game, the OU running game goes better when Dylan Gabriel's running the football. Jeff Lebby said, the actual quote, I looked it up, there were no issues with him. When I asked him, why didn't you use him more like that against Oklahoma State? There were no issues with him. That's his answer. So good news is Jeff Lebby will never hear this because he said he does not hear, does not listen, does not pay attention to anything. Right? I'm not sure I buy that. But anyway, you've got a quarterback who enjoys running the football and can run the football and, frankly, needs to run the football. So I think he's figured it out. I think that West Virginia game allowed him to figure it out. The other thing I want to talk about, Ryan, was Gavin Sawchuk for 135 yards and 1 carry for Tawee Walker for -2 yards. I got a question on YouTube, I think it was. YouTube comments asked me, is Tawee in the doghouse or is he still hurt? And I think the answer is probably a little bit of both, maybe.
I think if he was in the doghouse, they wouldn't have used him like they did in Lawrence, and they wouldn't have given him that handful of carries in the 3rd quarter in Stillwater where he was clearly hobbled. Like if you're in the doghouse and hobbled, like you're probably just not getting that opportunity. I truly think it's more just he's not 100%. He can't cut. He said it to us right after the Kansas game, right? That he couldn't cut because of the lower body injury. And so he wanted to let somebody else who could cut have an opportunity. And so especially you pair that with Sawchuk running as good as he ran on Saturday. And there wasn't really a need to go to anything else when Dylan's tearing it up on the ground. Sawchuk is humming. That's kind of all of the rushing, all the carries you needed because Oklahoma's having great success just throwing the ball downfield.
Yeah. Once you get the passing game going, that running game really opens up. I know that sounds backwards, but it's true in Oklahoma's case. They hit a couple of downfield passes, and all of a sudden those safeties and linebackers start backing up a little bit. And boom, you can run the football. 221 yards on the ground, 5.3 per carry. Pretty good night for the Sooners. All right, that's a bow on West Virginia. let's move on to BYU. We'll break down the BYU preview in the next segment. What I want to break down right now, what I want to talk about and dive into is the Big 12 Conference. Leadership, lack of, no direction. 14 teams, no more round robin. Hey, do you think we might need a tiebreaker? I don't know. What do you guys think? You think we might need a tiebreaker? Maybe. What if 2 teams finish tied? What if 3 teams finish tied? That's never going to happen. Just write some stuff down. Maybe we can use it in pencil in case we need to erase anything later. Big 12, what are you doing? Here's where we stand right now. Texas is currently 2 games left for everybody. Texas is currently in first place. There's 4 teams currently tied for second. They all have 2 losses. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Iowa State. Let's just put it to bed this way, Ryan. OU makes the championship game if, number 1, of course, they have to win out. They have to win their last 2 games. Number 2, they can get in the championship game if Iowa State beats Texas this week in Ames. Iowa State is on a roll, but they're 7.5-point underdogs to the Longhorns this week. The Longhorns, who just lost their running back for the season to an ACL injury. 7.5-point favorite, no running back. Not no running back, but, they don't have their starter, who Jonathan Brooks is really good, by the way. OU can also make the championship game if Texas loses next Friday night at home to Texas Tech. Probably not going to happen, but stranger things in this league have happened.
And Iowa State have to beat K-State in that.
What's that?
And Iowa State would have to beat K-State.
Right. They also need Iowa State to lose to Kansas State.
No, beat Kansas State.
To beat Kansas State. Sorry, said that wrong.
Texas loses to Tech. Iowa State beats Kansas State. That's
Iowa State beats K-State.
The most inside straight as far as the least simple path.
Or if Oklahoma State loses to either Houston this week, they're a 6.5-point favorite against Houston down there in Houston. Or next week at home in Stillwater to BYU. So there's your scenario. Oklahoma has a pretty clear path to get in, but they need some things to happen. They got to take care of their own business. And frankly, the way Texas is going these days and the way Iowa State is going these days, I don't know how Texas is a 7.5-point favorite. If that game shakes out like it looks like it could, OU just needs to win its 2 games and they're in the Big 12 championship. Crazy.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this on radio. I think this is a huge weekend for Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers.
Yep.
We all know what that Iowa State defense wants to do, how they're constructed, drop back, make you dink and dunk down the field.
Yep.
If the Quinn Ewers from last year rolls up to Ames, he's going to complete 50% of his passes, throw 2 picks, and Iowa State's going to have a great chance to win that game. If Quinn Ewers, who we've seen a lot this year, the patient guy, the one that's happy to just take what the defense gives him, understand, hey, I'm not going to hit 4 just absolute nukes to Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, and I'm going to have to use Mitchell behind the line of scrimmage and Sanders, then I think Texas should be fine. As Iowa State, their offensive linemen have been very keen to point out they've won 4 of 5 against Texas and Ames or something like that. So it's been a spot that Texas has struggled with, but I'd like to remind Iowa State, Texas has gone to Tuscaloosa, an actual massive stadium, massive atmosphere, and they handled that just fine. So I don't think anyone's quivering in their little space boots about going to Jack Trice at night. That's not a thing. So it's just going to be on how well does Quinn Ewers play. It'll be interesting. The easy thing for Oklahoma is, maybe not turn the ball over 6 times between their trips to Lawrence and Stillwater and not have 5 trillion false starts and win one of those games and not worry about it. But it's pretty simple. And I think the headline takeaway from the whole hubbub this week has been Oklahoma did not get screwed by this clarification / change. As it was going to stand in a 3-way tie between OSU, OU, and K-State, the way it was written since August, Kansas State would have won that tiebreaker. Now, the sensical way where OSU beat both those teams head-to-head, so they should just go through, OSU win the tiebreaker. So, OU would not have been the beneficiary either way. It just shows you how stupid and poorly run this conference is, that you had a Big 12 official clarify to the Oklahomans, Scott Wright, on Saturday that, yes, everyone's reading this correctly. If OSU, Oklahoma, and K-State are tied, you throw out the head-to-head, and K-State would go, only to come back on Tuesday and say, you all have been reading this wrong the whole way. This was always the rule, when you yourself said it wasn't that way on Saturday. Brett Yormark doesn't know a thing about football. He's shown it to us every time. He said, I'm a basketball guy. And his football czar also doesn't know a thing about football, apparently.
Doesn't know a thing about tiebreakers. That's the joke of this thing. Here's the tiebreaker for a multiple team ties. In the event of a tie between more than two teams, the following procedures will be used. After one team has an advantage and is, quote, seeded, all remaining teams in the multiple team tiebreaker will repeat the multiple team tie-breaking procedure. Check. If at any point the multiple team tie is reduced to two teams, the two-team tie-breaking procedure will be applied. Okay, got it. Here we go. Number 1, head-to-head, parentheses, best cumulative win percentage in games among the tied teams, close parentheses. If not, every tied team has played each other, comma, go to step 2. What?
There's a typo in there from the jump. Before the season, that sentence made no sense.
No sense whatsoever. I feel like I'm reading instructions on how to put together a cabinet that I bought at Lowe's. And I want to say, have you tried doing this in English? Because what you wrote there does not make sense to me. I speak English. It doesn't make sense to me. And then they go into multiple possible procedures and ties and all that other crap. I'm not going to read all that. But the other tiebreakers, total number of wins. This is the 5th one. Total number of wins in a 12-game season. Okay. I thought we had discussed that this was a tiebreaker and that everybody's going to be tied. So including conference, non-conference, there's an FCS clause in there that you can only play one FCS, only count one win against FCS. Dude, Barry Trammell, he got the other end of what Scott Wright got. And Barry wrote at Sellout, he wrote, I was told that because OU and K-State did not play each other, OSU's sweep of the Sooners and Wildcats was nullified. So K-State didn't play OU. OU didn't play K-State. You can't say everybody's tied. This triangle, everybody's exactly the same. Because these two didn't play, right? So you got to throw it out. All right? But the fact remains, Oklahoma State did beat OU and K-State. So Trammell says, at least I had confirmation. Then Monday, I was told by the same Big 12 source that our Saturday night communication caused further discussion in the conference office, leading to the clarification, which is scheduled to be presented to the Big 12 athletic directors in a conference call on Wednesday. So they had that conference call today. Apparently, it's the same conference call they have every Wednesday following the college football playoff announcement, the rankings. Ryan, help me try to make sense of this if you can. See what you think of this. This is my usual plea for every game. Not every game. There were games occasionally that my daughter was playing soccer, and I would appeal to the soccer refs from time to time. Are you seriously trying to cheat here, or are you just that incompetent? I think it's incompetence in the Big 12's case. I think we've addressed that. Startling incompetence.
Well, first off, they need a dictionary. This is not a clarification. A clarification would be like, this is what is written. This is what it means.
Yes.
When you have one result and then you say, actually, upon further discussion, we have a different result, that is called a change.
Right.
And changing something, again, this doesn't hurt or help OU in either way. Like, I don't care. I think we would all agree that, like, this is what makes the change is what makes the most sense. On the field, Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma. On the field, Oklahoma State beat K-State. Oklahoma State should go through if those three teams are tied. That makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yep.
But also, like, you can't change stuff 11 weeks into the season just because you realize how stupid you were at the start of the year. So, again, I think that this is just, I hope for this, like, people in Manhattan should probably be upset because things have been changed. The rules have been changed on Kansas State 3/4 of the way through the thing. This is the right outcome if it ends up in this tie. it just shows you that whoever is in charge of this process in the Big 12 office is an absolute idiot. And you can't, like, if you don't know for sure that that's the correct thing, don't tell a reporter that's right before you go, hey, let me just double check and triple check and fly this up the flagpole and back down, because otherwise you get this mess.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's
not that hard.
I hate to say it. These people know who they are in the Big 12 office. There's been some really good people over the years, some people who I consider friends, and I'm not pointing the finger at them. But some of the hires that have been made, some of the decisions that have come from those hires over the years, just completely pants the Big 12 in the eyes. You know how hard the SEC is laughing at it? You know how hard the Pac-12 is laughing? Pac-12's got problems, right? Pac-12's got issues, and they're going, at least we didn't do that. Big 12, this is why it's been tough for you to keep teams like Nebraska and Colorado and Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Texas. It's just, do we need to pile on at this stage? No, we don't. Oklahoma has 2 games left in their Big 12 history, and they'll be gone. And you and I will be covering an SEC team after this. Maybe 3, right? Maybe 3.
Maybe 3. I think it's an important historical footnote. The Pac-12 is suing each other right now and has had a better news cycle than the Big 12. They're suing each other. The Pac-12 office is siding with 10 schools that are leaving because they have no clue what Washington State, Oregon State, Washington State tomorrow might be like, we're absolving the Pac-12. We're chopping up $200 million. F you guys. And they have had a steadier week than the Big 12. And the Big 12 is just talking about tiebreakers that should have been set before the season.
Right. The Pac-12 right now, there's a bony, rotted hand coming out of the grave, right? And they're still having a better week than the Big 12. Shall we move on and preview the BYU game?
Let's do it.
Let's do that next on the AllSooners podcast. If you guys want to follow our work, all_Sooners on Twitter. I'm at John E. Hoover. Ryan is at _Ryan Chapman. Randall is at Randall Sweet 5, and Ross is at Ross Lovelace. Check out those guys on Twitter. The website is allsooners.com. We're a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. Don't forget, you're going to love this. This segment of the AllSooners podcast is presented by Infinite Asset Advisors. How much of your retirement savings are you willing to lose? Would you say all of it, some of it, or none of it? Well, if you're nearing retirement, or maybe if you're already in retirement, the math and the science have proven that a few bad market years could wipe away the kind of retirement that you dreamed of. But there is a way to safely grow your money and not have any market risk. You can even turn your savings into guaranteed lifetime income. At Infinite Asset Advisors, not only do they help you plan for retirement, but they can also show you how to become debt-free before you get there. They are experts in financial planning, retirement planning, even estate planning. Just visit their website, infiniteassetadvisors.com, to learn more, or fire an email off at those guys, team@infiniteassetadvisors.com. If you want to do it the old-fashioned way and just dial them up on the telephone, area code 512-710-0130, 710-0130. Simple as that. We're on to BYU, Ryan.
Diving in, Hoove, I'm very excited about this trip that's upcoming. I'm very excited to, knock on wood, appear to have regained some health so I can go on this trip, because that was very touch and go. Yeah. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Two historic programs matching up for only the third time. The first time on one of these teams' home turf. That's about it as far as the excitement. BYU is just not good, and I think they might have packed it up and in this year.
Yeah, I'll give you some stuff. Maybe you'll change your mind. BYU, I think, is 18th in the country in all-time wins or something like that. Maybe it's in the last 50 years. the Lavelle Edwards era. Okay, I grew up in Alaska, and we got a lot of West Coast games, and so when a team is good, that's kind of the default. Whoever, this is back in the day when not everybody was on TV, right? So we got a lot of BYU games. One reason was they scored 50 or 60 points a game and threw for 400 or 500 yards a game, and they were fun to watch. So I grew up a little bit on BYU college football. So I'm a big admirer. I love the color scheme, love the white helmets, love Lavelle Edwards' passing game. All you got to do when you say BYU history to tie it in, there's a bridge between Lavelle Edwards and what we see today. It's called Mike Leach. Mike Leach coached under Lavelle Edwards, picked up a lot of that stuff, the BYU offense, and a lot of his tendencies became what we see today, pervading all of college football, the spread offense. So Lavelle Edwards was an absolute magician. His quarterbacks, Jim McMahon, Mark Wilson, Ty Detmer won the Heisman Trophy. John Walsh beat OU in a bowl game, 31-6. They were up 31-0, and they were rolling. But let's talk about this year's team. Keaton Slovis, former, I think, pretty sure 5-star quarterback when I say that, recruit. He's been around, right? He's been to a few places, USC and Pitt. He's at BYU. He hasn't been able to stay healthy this year. Ryan, he's missed the last 2 full games, and in their last 3 games, they have been beaten 35-6 to Texas, 37-7 to West Virginia, and 45-13 to Iowa State. Did you get those 3? Texas, West Virginia, and Iowa State. OU is not only 3-0 against those 3, they've beaten them 34-30, 59-20, and 50-20. They've outscored those 3 teams. Oklahoma has 143-70. BYU was outscored by those 3 teams, 117-26. Here's the good thing. Jake Retzlaff, the former number one junior college quarterback recruit, he's back on the bench this week. Slovis is still a little banged up, but he's supposed to be healthy enough to play. Kalani Sitake said if he's ready to go, he's our guy. So I like it, Ryan. I think it's a good matchup, and the fans are crazy. I've got a number here. What is it? 260-85 is what BYU is at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. 260-85. That's a hell of a place to try to go in there and get a win.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm stoked as just like a college football fan for the putting OU and BYU, those logos beside each other, kicking off together, all that. This BYU team is awful. Like this version of them right now, they beat Texas Tech. You mentioned that Texas game where they got absolutely rolled. Slovis played that whole game. Even before Slovis got hurt, like active conversations in Provo and Salt Lake where does he need to be benched? So it's not like he's some return. It's not the Dylan Gabriel returning against Kansas last year and suddenly Oklahoma's offense is a phoenix rising from the ashes. This is a team that ranks like 75 or lower in virtually every statistical category that matters in college football out of 130. And they've not had a pulse for 3 straight weeks. And I think that this game was sold to BYU as it's senior day. We get Oklahoma. We get them one time in Provo. And that's why I think all year long we had just written to ourselves, like, this is either going to be in prime time or the after dark game because BYU is going to want that atmosphere. This thing's kicking off at 10 a.m. local. Like, I think that shows you every bit of like, yeah, we'll put you on ESPN or ABC, but you got to take the rooster kickoff because no one wants any part of this BYU team. And the most interesting thing is all Oklahoma storylines for me. Will we see the offense just, quote, be normal, right? Is it going to do the normal thing? It looks like it's going to be about the same temperature at kickoff as it was in Lawrence, mid-40s. There's supposed to be some precipitation on Thursday and some precip Saturday night, Sunday morning. That was the same forecast in Lawrence that got shifted up. Yep. Do you get that? Outside of that, BYU can't stop anybody. BYU can't score. Like, this should be, as far as road games go, other than deal with the altitude and a lot of fans who are there to support a really bad football, like, BYU stinks. They do.
Here's one thing. Most BYU fans are going to be just as drunk at 10 a.m. as they will be at 9 p.m.
That helps.
Am I right? Okay, so here's BYU is 104th in the country in scoring, 91st in scoring defense. Not good. 113th in first downs, 98th in first downs allowed. 124th in rushing, 114th in rushing defense. It's not good. Passing yards per game, they are 85th. Passing defense, they are 76th. Total offense, 123rd. Total defense, 103rd. They got a pulse in they're in really nothing. Like you said, sacks allowed. They protect their quarterback pretty good, but that might not explain why he gets hit and hurt. I'm with you, Ryan. This team right now, they're struggling with what Brent Venables might call competitive depth. Right? They're struggling to take that step up from 11 years. Is it 11 years? I can't remember. Of independence, not having a conference, trying to run around the country and play as many good teams as they can and fill in the blanks with everybody else. Now they're stepping up into Big 12 play, and you see the results the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you were projecting, this is what made I felt there were more unknowns about Oklahoma and Cincinnati than going to be unknowns about this game because of where it happens in the season, right? Those 4 teams making the jump up, they just weren't going to have the same depth. I think UCF, after Cincinnati had their portal exits, UCF probably was the closest roster resembling a Power 5 roster as far as what they've been doing, because they have those Florida athletes. They got dinged early. You saw they couldn't win a game without John Rice Plumlee. It's been tough to touch and go with him. But getting BYU all the way at the end of the year, I think you're just seeing they're worn down. This is a group that I'm not sure if they would have brought the head coach back last year if they weren't entering a new conference, just to have that kind of smooth transition. Like, it's not like they were a great team last year, just struggling with the Big 12 slate. And the quarterback play has been really bad. And when they can't run the football, like that's the one thing in this game. If Oklahoma, like if Gentry Williams doesn't go again like he did last week, if Deshaun McCullough doesn't go again, he was held out precautionary. Like, Oklahoma's defense is most gettable through the air. I just don't have any faith in Slovis or any of the backups to come in and consistently over 4 quarters really make Oklahoma pay for that. Because that's like the one area where Oklahoma's defense, they give up yards mostly through the air.
And yet, I'll say this, Ryan, Kansas's defense wasn't any good either. Oklahoma State's defense wasn't any good either, right? And Oklahoma went up there and laid an egg twice. One of them, like you said, in poor weather. The other one was fine. And both of those, to me, I give credit to the teams, KU and OSU, for making the plays that they needed to make, for taking it seriously, for preparing well. But to me, both of those games came down to what team Oklahoma brought out on the field. If they would have played better, if they would have not stumbled all over themselves, if they would have not jumped off sides a trillion times, like you said, if they would have not had unforced turnovers, I think Oklahoma wins both of those games easily and comfortably, not easily, but comfortably at the end of the game. So do they go back to Provo, bad weather, long trip, really the longest trip in the Big 12, and do they make those mistakes again? That's the thing we have to ask.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's going to come on here with certainty and say, oh, yes, Oklahoma's not going to turn the ball over, because when they've gone on the road, they've had issues, whether it be Dylan Gabriel fumbling in the red zone in Cincinnati, not a road game, but Oklahoma special teams miscues in the Cotton Bowl, Lawrence, Stillwater. I don't think any of those need to be rehashed. You know, it really just Tulsa's the only one they haven't, that has been pretty smooth sailing. But for Oklahoma, this is so much about focus, the same stuff they were talking about last week. Execute early to, one, nerf the crowd, right? Try to take them out of it, make that BYU sideline go, here we go again. We've got our doors beat in 3 straight weeks. This is about to be week number 4. Oklahoma has everything within that locker room if they just play a clean game to blow BYU out. And they need that because you get the backups in the game in the fourth quarter. That's less wear and tear for turnaround on a short week to try to close the season out on a high against TCU.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to be moved up a day, right? Because it's a Friday, Black Friday game instead of Saturday. Like all of that, you can make the most of the toughest situation you have on your schedule as far as a quick turnaround. If you come out, don't turn the ball over, just get downhill. Gavin Sawchuk has a similar running game like he had a week ago, all that stuff. It'll be interesting to see because if Oklahoma fools around, even if they win this game, they're just going to make the turnaround for next week that much harder on themselves because everyone's going to be one quarter more beaten up for the quick turnaround to play TCU.
Yep, you're right. A couple of quick pitches for you. You guys are going to want to hear this. Great interview Monday we had with Jonah Laulu. He's got tons of family who live in Utah. He said he's going to have 30, 40 people there at the BYU game. He said he goes to Utah a lot every year for snowboarding. 6'6", 293-pound Jonah Laulu on a snowboard. I want to see pictures. I want to see video. He said he goes to Brighton, which is really close, kind of in between Provo and Salt Lake City. So what I would recommend you guys do is watch that interview. He's laughing. He's joking. He's like bending over and like laughing so hard that he has to slap his knee. I'm serious. He is cracking up at some of the stories he's telling about snowboarding. So watch that interview and check out my story from this morning, please, at allsooners.com. Jonah Laulu, absolute legend in the Monday night interviews. And then coming up later in the week, I'm going to try and have it ready for tomorrow. I'm going to try and turn it around for tomorrow morning. I'm going to have a story on Colby Clausen. Who's that? Who the heck is Colby Clausen? Well, some of you guys already know that name. He's the BYU linebacker who wrecked Sam Bradford's shoulder in their game at Jerry World in 2009. I spoke with him this morning for about 20 minutes, and I'm telling you, if he didn't have such a cool, super important job of taking care of BYU football players, which isn't going to be in the story, I swear we could have talked for 2 hours. An amazing conversation, a great interview, a very engaging person. And he said he has, for all these years, felt bad about injuring Sam, but he has said he's glad he got paid. He didn't affect his earning potential. He got drafted number 1 and got a $50 million signing bonus and all that guaranteed money. So I will have that for you tomorrow at allsooners.com. Ryan, any thoughts on previous games you might have watched between OU and BYU?
That's how you do it. Well, there's only one on the table because I was not on this earth for the Copper Bowl, but I was up close and personal in the stands for that one. That was the first football game ever played at Jerry World, not the first sporting event. That honor goes to, of course, as you all know by now, Chelsea Football Club and Club America played in a summer soccer tour in Jerry World a couple months before Oklahoma and BYU squared off. But that was the first football game, not a Dallas Cowboys Monday nighter against the Giants or anything like that. It was OU, BYU, and only the second time those two teams ever played.
Yeah, first American football game. There was a concert there a few nights before. Do you remember who it was?
I do not.
I can't say for sure, but my memory, for some reason, very faulty. My memory is like Garth Brooks. It's Garth Brooks. I'm not sure it was Garth Brooks. I don't know if it was or not.
Should have been. We should just rewrite. Actually, Taylor Swift kicked off the Eras tour the night before OU and BYU played, and she's been on the Eras tour ever since. That's what we're gonna start here on the AllSooners podcast.
That's a good rumor. Good stuff, Ryan. Thanks for fighting through again, man. We're glad to have you back.
Absolutely, and hey, basketball season's kicking up. It'll be getting going a lot more next weekend. During the feast week, Thanksgiving week, Oklahoma heads out to San Diego. First game against Iowa. Then they'll meet. That's on Thanksgiving Day, I believe. Sure, my fan will be stoked for that. Then they'll play either Seton Hall or USC the next day. So Porter Moser's crew has been really impressive. I haven't played anybody, but they've been really impressive. And that thing will get going. And Ginny Baranchek's girls are in the top 25 after a big win at Ole Miss. So
how is OU ranked 25 after a win? Was it a double-digit win at Ole Miss? And Ole Miss is ranked 23.
Yeah, I think it was our old friend and this is where nerdy Ryan gets to come out. The great thought of pull inertia, where if you start at 10, it's easier to get to 1 and also harder to fall all the way out. Oklahoma started unranked, has that win. So for them to jump all the way in, they got to jump to 20 to 25, whereas Ole Miss, it takes all this to now everyone's like, well, they lost to a ranked team because I just ranked them right. It's silly. It's the same reason you saw like Colorado jump from like 20 to in the top 5 after beating LSU's, because they were like, I guarantee you if Colorado was unranked instead of 20th, they would not be the 5th team in the country or whatever it is, merely off of beating LSU. So Jenny Bronchek, she scheduled that non-conference pretty difficult, so they'll have more opportunities. They're playing Tennessee here in a couple of weeks. Don't remember exactly when that one falls. So a couple more marquee spots for Oklahoma to earn that respect on the hardwood before they hit Big 12 play.
Porter and them boys beat Texas State last night by about 40.
39, yes.
39. They're really, I don't know how really good they are, but they're really fun to watch. They're athletic. If they can put the ball in the basket, they're going to be tough. They're going to be a tough out in the Big 12.
Yeah, they're not going to have the issues of just wilting. Like, I went back and looked, and they were either 2-5 or 2-7. I don't remember if it was 2-5 in 7 games overall or 2-7 in Big 12 games that were within 1 score at the under 4 timeout a year ago. That was something that killed them 2 years ago as well. They've got a bigger presence in John Hughley, who can rebound, and all that linked athleticism and more of it. They've got 3 juniors and seniors that come off the bench now instead of 3 freshmen being thrown in there. I know Porter Moser's really excited about that, but I'm kind of in wait and see mode. I think we'll learn a lot more about them next week during Feast Week with not a world beater Iowa team or anything like that, but just some Power 5 competition.
Ryan, we'll see you in Salt Lake City.
Beautiful. See you tomorrow, boss.
All right. This segment of the AllSooners podcast was presented by Infinite Asset Advisors. Go to infiniteassetadvisors.com to learn how you can get debt-free and begin real retirement planning right now. Don't wait to do this. Do it right now, because whether it's retirement, private banking, family asset protection, estate planning, or living trust, just let Corey and his team take a look at your portfolio. Those guys will get you on the way to taking control of your financial future. Call 512-710-0130 or email team@infiniteassetadvisors.com, or just check out their website, infiniteassetadvisors.com. Coming up next, we're going to hit recruiting. You better believe it. That's with Randall. All that's next on the AllSooners podcast. All right, final segment of the AllSooners podcast. Remember, if you like the podcast. We really appreciate it. Give us a like, drop us a rating, give us a 5-star rating, because we're 5-star talent, right? No? Okay, give us a 5-star rating anyway. We'd like those. Share us on social media if you can. And certainly if you're on the YouTube channel, John Hoover Media, like and subscribe there as well. And leave us a comment. Some of those comments I'm able to get to. Some of them I remove. But you know who you are. If I remove your comment, there's a reason for it. There's a really good reason for it. All right. Randall has joined us. Randall, the recruiting expert. We'll get to recruiting in just a minute. We're going to start with, since he was down there on the sideline at the West Virginia game, we're going to let him put a bow on the West Virginia game from his perspective. What did you think of that complete performance by OU against the Mountaineers?
Well, you said it. It was a very complete performance. I mean, OU finally got the ground game going. I mean, I shouldn't say finally. That's kind of 3 weeks in a row that they've been able to get the ground game going.
They're getting there.
But had the ground game going. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel with a historic performance. I mean, Drake Stoops, Nick Anderson both looked really good in the passing game. Defensively, another goal line stand. And after that first drive, the OU defense really tightened up and played with a lot of ferocity. So I think that if you're an OU fan, that performance has to give you some hope heading into the rest of the season. The Sooners and Mountaineers are always a chippy game for some reason. Yep. We talked about that on the podcast, but it goes back to the 2017? I mean, even before that. So that was entertaining. That did not change this year, obviously, as you could see, I'm sure, from all the videos on Twitter. But being down there on the field, it was really the entire game. There was some chippiness, but good atmosphere. I thought OU fans did a good job of showing out for that game, especially after 2 consecutive losses. They made a really lively environment. I think that there's plenty of recruits there, and I think that those people were really impressed. So OU kind of checked all the boxes on Saturday.
Yeah, OU had a lot of commits that were there, and I thought it was a perfect night weather-wise. It was a perfect performance by the team. Everybody was, and there was a little bit, like you said, chippiness, a little bit of a fight in the end zone, and got everybody's kind of dander up a little bit, right? Got the recruits that were there were like, yeah, this is where I want to be. I think they had probably a really good time.
And teammates sticking up for each other, it kind of
Yeah.
shows that family atmosphere that recruits, that players always talk about at OU. Obviously President Harris fist bumping McCade Matoyer as he's walking off the field. I think that all of that kind of played into a really cool atmosphere for, especially if you're a high school football player recruit. It's probably something really fun to see.
I'm pretty sure Brent Venables said, "You see that guy right over there? That guy fist bumping as he's been ejected? That's your president.
Yeah.
That's the president of the university. That's the guy that's going to be in charge when you're here as a recruit." Venables, that's a great selling point.
Absolutely.
All right, BYU. I'm guessing you've never been to Tulsa. You've never been to Stillwater. I'm guessing you've never been to Utah.
No, not much experience in Utah.
So tell me about it. Tell me about, you're getting there a little bit later than me and Ryan, but I think our runaround day is going to be on Friday because it's going to rain all day Thursday. We're going out on Thursday to see the sights and to have a half a personal day or whatever you want to call it. And it's supposed to rain all day, but we're going to be there on Friday as well. We'll have all of our stuff posted at allsooners.com. We'll have an ear to the railroad, so to speak. We'll have an ear to the ground, kind of picking up on the news that's happening. But we're going to be up sightseeing in the mountains on Friday, man. I'm stoked. I don't know about you, but I am stoked.
I'm really excited too. I mean, Cincinnati I thought was a really cool road trip because we got to see some cool stuff, some places I'd never been. Now this is a amazing road trip for another reason. I mean, we get to see beautiful, I would assume, mountains. Again, I've never been to Utah, so I'm assuming there'll be some amazing scenery there. I'm really excited to see what it's all about. I've heard great things. I've heard it's really beautiful, so I'm excited to see it for myself.
Yeah, the mountains are like, here's the stadium, right? And the mountains are like right behind it. So I can't wait. I don't know if you can see them from the field, but you can certainly see them from the press box.
Well, if you can see them from the field, I'll have to try to incorporate that into some of my highlights. That'd be some pretty fun shots to get.
The wide angle pan into the touchdown pass right before the artistic.
I'll have to get there a few hours early to practice.
Sounds good.
Warm up.
All right, let's talk about recruiting. OU landed their latest commit last Friday night. You were there. You videoed the commit. You got highlights from him. You talked to him afterwards. Tell us all about Alex Shield Knight.
Well, I think that OU fans are really going to love Alex Shield Knight. This is a hardworking kid, small town Oklahoma, which I think always rings in well with the fan base, but a really, really physical player. I mean, even when he was playing offense at tight end, not afraid to get in there and mix it up with the defensive linemen, the linebackers. He is listed at 6'4", 235. He looks every bit of 235. I mean, this kid is really, really well built, especially for a junior in high school. One thing that I think OU fans will also like to hear is that he said that he chose now to commit because he wanted to make sure that by the time next January rolled around, he was graduated from high school and ready to enroll at OU early. And so that was a real big motivator for him committing so early, is because he wanted to get to Norman early. He wanted to be part of that early enrollee group that, really gives those players an advantage to learn the playbook, learn, life in college football, and just get more experience in the weight room with, Jerry Schmidt, that strength and conditioning staff. But again, a kid who is very well built. He is a very hard worker, offers from, Tennessee, Arkansas, some other big SEC schools. He told me he grew up as an OU fan. He said that went to one OU game, and it was OU versus Ohio State in Norman. Maybe not the best game to go to if you're an OU fan, but nonetheless, he seems pretty excited to be in Norman. And he said that his relationship with Coach V, with Coach Chavis, the defensive line group, that is really just unmatched. That's what led him to OU. And I mean, I feel so redundant saying that, but I feel like every single recruit I talk to, I say, what sets OU apart? And they say the relationships I've been able to build with Coach V, with Coach Chavis, with Coach Bates. Nigel Smith told me the exact same thing. I mean, that's what I hear over and over again from these recruits. So I know it sounds redundant. Maybe fans don't like to keep hearing that. But I think that this staff is just really, really good at building relationships, showing parents, student athletes, everyone involved, that they obviously care about the football side of things and that they're really focused on that. But even off the field, that this team is focused on growing these football players into young men. I think that rings really well with parents, and I think that the type of players that the Venables regime is trying to recruit, that means a lot to them. And so I think that that's why the Sooners have had success recruiting players like that. On the field, I mean, Alex Shield Knight was a complete game wrecker. I don't think Broken Bow completed a pass until like maybe the second half, pretty close to halftime at least. They scored 7 points in the entire game. I don't think he actually had any QB sacks, but he had multiple QB hits, dragging the quarterback down, and they were hard hits. I mean, as my coach would say, the remember me hits, where you make that the quarterback, the running back, he's thinking about you next time he gets the ball. Made a few tackles for loss. He impacted the game at tight end. Caught a 58-yard pass, I think, like the second play from scrimmage. Then the next play or 2 plays later, caught a touchdown. Later in the game, he was kind of playing an H-back role, and they handed off the ball to him, and he ran into the end zone. Now, again, he is playing defensive line at OU, but I think that him playing tight end, being so successful there, just shows the versatility, the athleticism. And again, in a game where the other teams may be able to drop back and throw the ball a little more, you'd see that some of those pass rushing skills come to fruition.
Yeah, that's a good point. My favorite part of the story from Friday night when Alex Shield Knight committed, we talked about it at the top, and that was it was a big recruiting weekend for Oklahoma. Bunch of visits, bunch of commits, bunch of people on campus taking their visits, official visits, unofficial visits. Alex Shield Knight said, "Nope, sorry, can't make it. I got to go duck hunting."
I meant to mention that. I was going to say if OU fans did not already love this guy, that's what's going to be the cherry on top. I mean, I think it was Eddie Radosevich asked him, when are you coming to Norman next? And he said, I don't know, but not tomorrow. Got to go duck hunting. So
if they get if they get him and they get Grant Bricks, the offensive lineman from Iowa, you talk about a couple of country boys through and through. They're going to be roommates. That's my prediction. If Bricks commits to OU.
And the thing is maybe it sounds stereotypical, but you want those country boys on the trenches. I mean, that's where those guys thrive. And I think that, that nastiness, that physicality, that hard work, again, maybe it's country toughness. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Toughness.
Grittiness.
All that shows up in the trenches. And I think that both of those guys have it.
Yep. All right. So what's the latest on Bricks?
Well, he was in Norman this weekend, saw a picture that confirmed that in case anyone needed proof. It's on Twitter. Go find it. But from what I understood, really, really enjoyed his visit to Norman. Again, was able to, as we've heard with plenty of other recruits, was able to talk to Coach Biedenbow, kind of build that relationship. I know that he already was super close with Coach Biedenbow, super close with Coach Schmidt, the strength and conditioning coach. So obviously being in Norman, he was able to strengthen those relationships in person. And then on top of that, I mean, OU putting up 59 points, probably their best offensive performance of the season, given the caliber of opponent and the way that they played. So that's obviously going to impress. And then I think people may say it doesn't matter, but the other school that Bricks is heavily considering, Nebraska, they lost 13-10 at home to Maryland. So I don't know exactly how much 1 week will play into this very high 4-star recruit's commitment. But again, when he's nearing the end of the line, this is what's fresh in his memory. Nebraska scoring 10 points in a loss versus OU scoring 59 points in a win. A game that he's at, a night game, again, where we saw McCade Matoyer get showered with praise. He was kind of one of the heroes of the night, an offensive lineman. And even on the field, Matoyer, the rest of that offensive line, they were moving people. They played great. Jacob Sexton, a young guy, was in the game. Caden Green, a young guy, was in the game. And so I think also showing Bricks that, look, these guys are really young. They're making an impact. Not only are they just playing, but they're playing really well and they're making an impact. So that could be you. Come get this coaching. Come, potentially play early. We'll put you in the position to succeed. So I think all that played out really well with Bricks.
Think about it, what you just said. True freshman in the starting lineup and has been in the starting lineup. Sophomore making his first career home start after starting in the bowl game last year, right? When Anton Harrison opted out. Both those guys, Grant Bricks, I'm sure, is very well aware, were made captains this week for the BYU game.
Yep. And I mean, again, I think that there's some strategy to that. I mean, obviously those
Uh-huh.
two are good players, so they've earned that for themselves. But I do think that it also shows, look, you know, you don't have to come and sit until you're a senior. If you're ready to play, and we'll put you in the position to where you're ready to play. We'll give you the coaching, we'll give you the strength and conditioning, and if you have the ability to go take that opportunity, then it's there for you. And I think that for a guy, obviously, I don't think that OU's promising Grant Bricks anything. That does not seem like Bill Bedenbaugh's style to me.
Right.
But I do think that seeing that the opportunity is there, that he will have the opportunity to work towards that goal. Again, with the relationship he's built at OU, with the success that they were kind of able to have getting back on track, I think that all signs are really, really positive for Grant Bricks right now. OU is going to have to close out, of course. Nebraska's not going to give up. They're really close, a lot more local to him. But I do think that after this weekend, OU is in the driver's seat.
All right. Among the other visitors that were on campus last week, there was another former Michigan State commit who has since decommitted from the Spartans. Tell us about him.
Yeah, Cameron Campbell. So, Eli Bowen is also committed to OU in the 2024 class. Cameron Campbell's kind of a polar opposite style of player. He's 6'1". He's really long, super athletic. I mean, 47 second 400, which if you know track, that's moving.
That's
Uh,
flying.
yeah, and so long, fast. I mean, from Florida. This is kind of the guy that Jay Valai, that this defensive staff seems like they would take a chance on. Not rated very highly, but when you factor in his athleticism, his size, the potential is through the roof. And again, I think that at this point in the class, OU's kind of with that defensive backroom, just taking all the guys that they think are good enough and saying, when you get here, battle it out. I mean, you've got Eli Bowen, who I mentioned. You've got Michael Patterson McDonald. You've got, I think there's already 7 defensive back commits in the class after getting Reggie Powers a few weeks ago. So now, fighting for another guy, it's going to be create a crowded room. But if those guys get to OU, if they do all end up getting to OU, then it's just going to create competition and the cream rises to the top, right? But for Campbell specifically, I think it helped this weekend that former Michigan State commit and current OU commit Reggie Powers was also on campus. So
Mm-hmm.
again, both of those guys were committed to Michigan State, decommitted in September. Now one's committed to OU. One was on campus this weekend. I think that's going to really help, again, that having another former Michigan State commit there, someone he knows. And this is someone that I think that OU would really love to have, again, the length, the athleticism. That's just, you don't find guys like that very often. And OU continues to recruit that Tampa, Orlando area, which they've been really, really hot on the trail there recently. Sorry, I almost forgot too. Speaking of Tampa, offensive lineman Eddie Pierre-Louis in the 2024 class. We were talking about Grant Bricks.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like OU may have moved on from Pierre-Louis. It doesn't seem like that's going to go their way anymore. So makes it even more important to land Grant Bricks.
Yeah. Good point. There were some 2025s on campus as well. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, most notably Nate Roberts. So I think in-state OU fans will definitely know that name. The star tight end at Washington High School, one of the top 2 tight ends in the whole country, one of the top 60 players in the nation. This is someone that OU would love to have. I mean, when OU missed out on him originally because he committed to Notre Dame over the summer, I know that was a big loss for them. That was something that they were really feeling at the moment. OU fans kind of tried to, mask it and say, well, I mean, it's because we were making room for Devon Mitchell. But I mean, I think at this point, OU's realized that there's no reason they can't go grab both of those guys. They're in different recruiting classes.
Yeah.
Nate Roberts has been a guy who over this summer has worked out with Kevin Sperry, with Elijah Thomas, who are in his class, both committed to OU. Jaden Nickens is a guy who he's played in the state championship game before. Good chance that they'll see each other in the state championship game again this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that he's got a good connection with the other guys in the 2025 class. He's been to Norman multiple times this fall, so it's a great sign. But OU, they still have their work cut out for him. Nate Roberts was also in at Penn State this fall. He was also in Columbus to visit Ohio State. So it's not cut and dry just because he's from right down the road in Washington, even though I think Washington is only like 20 minutes from Norman. So OU's got their work cut out for him. The fact that he was on campus again, and hey, we mentioned it earlier in the season when Devon Mitchell was coming to campus. We thought Stogner would have a big game then. Turns out it was just delayed a few weeks. He had a pretty solid game with Roberts on campus, and so I think that that, that's a good sign for Joe John Finley and company to kind of point out and say, look, when you're here, imagine what we could do with you in that role, and so
I think
and
the
then,
coaches listen to the podcast. I
I,
think
I,
we gave them the idea.
yeah, I think so too. I mean, if Joe John, if you're listening, you're welcome. But I mean, really, I've seen Nate Roberts play. I mean, he's a tremendous athlete for a kid who's 6'5", 235 already as a junior in high school. And so if OU is able to get him on campus and play him in that role, he'd be super versatile. I mean, catching passes, running downfield. Obviously, Stogner did a great job of that on Saturday specifically. And I think that the OU coaches are trying to tell Roberts, now imagine if this was you with your athleticism, with what you can do with the ball in your hands. And then also in the 2025 class, Max Granville from the Houston area, Fort Bend Christian Academy. Smaller, quicker edge rusher. I think he's about 6'3", 220 right now. But I mean, the weight has not been an issue. Alabama has offered multiple other big schools as a 4-star recruit. And from what I understand, he really, really likes OU. Getting to be in Norman this weekend, while the defensive line may not have recorded a sack, but that defense did perform really well. Seeing the way that not only the team got excited, but the entire stadium erupted when OU got that goal line stand. I mean, the music started playing, the fans were jumping up and down, the players were running onto the field, jumping and congratulating each other. Stuff like that, when you're able to see the buy-in from the team, I think that really will play well with recruits. Again, especially a guy who is pretty close from the Houston area and seemed to already like OU. And then finally in the 2025 class, the offered guys was CJ Jim Coyley, who has been to Norman before. He was at the Brent Venables camp this summer, and he performed really well there. Was able to stick with some of the top receivers. Big defensive back. He's already 6'3", 200 pounds, again, as a junior in high school. So guys like that are not you don't come across every day. He plays for Lipscomb Academy, which, if you know National High School Football, is one of the top high school football programs in America, one of the best teams in Tennessee pretty regularly. Caleb Beasley, who OU offered and tried to get in the 2024 class, also from Lipscomb Academy. There's a few other offers on that team, but Jim Coyley specifically is a guy that I've talked to. He has a really good relationship with Coach Valai. He says he talks to the OU coaching staff pretty regularly. And after the Texas game, he told me that he kind of kept tabs on OU. That game really opened his eyes, and he said after that game, OU was definitely getting a visit from him. Well, came to fruition this past weekend. From what I understood, seems like he enjoyed himself, and I think that, again, long way to go, but I think that OU may be in the driver's seat as of right now with him.
Interesting. Okay. What about what was I gonna ask you? The running back, 2025 running back, dropped his top 3 on this week.
Yeah, Harlem Berry. So Harlem Berry is the number 1 running back in the 2025 class, which maybe if you thought DeMarco Murray was able to pull off magic in 2024, he'd be able to do it again in 2025. Unfortunately, after Berry, I think, put OU in his top 5 or top 8, one of his top schools list, cut that list and announced his commitment date this week. Mm-hmm. And OU is not in that top 3. So Texas, LSU, and Florida, which if you're OU, kind of have to be shaking your fist at that. That's 3 future conference opponents. But again, in 2024, landing the top running back, also landing Xavier Robinson, bringing Andy Bass. You've already got a top 5 running back committed in 2026. Feels like right now that running back room could get a little crowded, especially with the freshmen they have on campus now: Dalen Smothers, Caleb Hicks. Yep. Javante Barnes didn't see the field much this year. He'll probably stick around, at least not going to the draft. Gavin Sawchuk's going to be on campus for at least 1 or 2 more years, you'd expect. So that running back room could get crowded. Probably hard to fit the number 1 running back in 2025 after you also landed the number 1 running back in 2024. But again, if you're OU, of course, it'd be nice to have those guys. He'll pick between Texas, LSU, and Florida in December.
A couple of guys dropped their top, not finalists, because they're going to keep paring it down, because that's the way the system works. But one dropped his top 4, one dropped his top 12, and OU came up favorably in both.
Yeah, so we'll go with the top 12 first. Myron Charles, a 2025 defensive lineman. 6'4", 295 pounds, big dude from Florida. And I think I mentioned before the podcast, I feel like half the SEC is in his top 12. So OU, again, plenty of work to do. This is a guy who has got offers from all over the country. He's a top 150 player. Again, those big physical defensive linemen like that, not easy to come by, so everybody wants them. But OU's recruited Florida really well recently. Heading into the SEC, they'll have a better chance to continue to recruit well in the Southeast. And I mean, I think with, you can look at what they've done with a guy like DeJoun Terry, with some of their interior defensive linemen this year, and kind of point to a guy like that and say, look at the role you could be playing. I mean, you could be in on these goal line stands. You could be doing things like that. So OU's going to have to continue to build that defensive resume. But I think that at least at the moment, they're in the mix. They're in the top 12 for Myron Charles. Again, probably going to be hard to pull a guy from Florida away from Florida State, from Miami, from some of those other places. But they've done it before. It's not impossible. Yep. And then Jacaden Ferguson, a 2025 wide receiver from the Houston area, released his top 4, and that included Oklahoma, Oregon, Tennessee, and Houston. Right now, I've heard some rumblings that Houston may be in the lead there. Again, this is a 3-star wide receiver from the Houston area, so that's not completely shocking. But I think that OU may be looking at him to see if they don't land on a guy like Andrew Marsh, if they can't land a guy like Isaiah Mazie, 6'2", Jacaden Ferguson, who has an uncle who spent time at A&M and 8 years in the NFL. It's not a bad option to take in that class, especially when you've already got 3 4-star wide receivers in Elijah Thomas, in Grayson Harris, and in Jaden Nickens. Jacaden Ferguson's a big play threat. He's athletic. Again, 6'2", he's tall. So if the Sooners are able to bring him in, then I think that would obviously be a great pickup. Emmett Jones knows what he wants in those receivers. But I also think that if he does end up committing to OU, that it is a sign that maybe Mazie or Marsh is probably not going to end up in that 2025 class for the Sooners. But he's announcing his commitment on January 2nd. So plenty of time between now and then, or January 4th. I don't know. Sometime in early January, 2nd or 4th. And so OU will know more then. But I think that right now Houston's probably the leader for him.
Interesting. Yeah, if Mosey picks Oregon, that might be an indicator. Team rankings as of right now, we try to get these in where we can. Rivals, OU is number 6. 24/7 Sports, OU is number 7. On 3, OU is number 9. So that has not changed in the last couple of 3 weeks. What has changed is, if I'm not mistaken, Rivals has OU number 4 in the 2025 class. Yeah. So they've got 8 commits already in 25. Is that right? That's they're staying pretty busy.
Yes, they are. And I mean, again, we just talked about a few 2025 guys who are making decisions soon, some guys who are in on campus. So that list could be growing very quickly. And again, I think that that now that OU's built a really solid base in the local 2025 class, I think that now is when you start expanding to that national reach. Again, you've locked up a lot of the top 2025s in Oklahoma. I think the one guy that they're still working on in state is Tristan Haynes. Yeah. And that's probably the best guy in the state in 2025 on defense. Got offers from Alabama, all over the country. Big time guy, top 200, top 150 player, depending on where you look. But it seems like OU leads for him. Again, he's got 4 teammates committed to Oklahoma, so OU's already done a pretty good job of locking up Carl Albert. But I think that if they're able to close on Tristan Haynes, then I think after that's when you really start to make that national recruiting push, start focusing on the guys out of state, things like that. Because again, at that point, if Tristan Haynes does end up on board, you'd have 9 commits. I think 5 or 6 of them would be from Oklahoma, a few from Texas, Missouri, a lot of local kids.
Good stuff, Randall. Anything else to wrap up the recruiting cycle?
Still waiting on OU to offer a 2026 quarterback. I'm very puzzled as to why that has not happened yet. There's plenty of good ones out there. They brought kids on campus who have plenty of offers. I don't know. It's really interesting. This is kind of uncharted territory for what we've seen with Jeff Lebby and company. They haven't been here very long. They identified Sperry early, Hawkins early, but those guys were kind of, again, right when they got here.
Well, I have a thought on that.
Okay.
What if Jeff Lebby's holding on to his offers, holding him close to the vest, because he thinks he's going to get offered a head coaching job this year?
I think that's a possibility, and I think that while OU fans, a lot of them have called for Jeff Levy's head
Yeah,
before
not
that
gonna
West
happen.
Virginia game, which not going to happen. But my point in saying that is, if Jeff Levy goes, there's nothing assuring that you keep. Not only, I mean, people may say Jackson Arnold, but not only Jackson Arnold, Michael Hawkins and
Yep.
Kevin Sperry is the
Yep.
real key there. He and Jeff Levy are very close. I mean, he moved to Oklahoma just to be closer to OU and Jeff Levy. They've
Yep.
got a great relationship. He's the style of quarterback that Jeff Levy loves to play with. I mean, he really fits that similar Dylan Gabriel mold as a player. And so I think that if you're an OU fan, if you want to hang on to Kevin Sperry, then keeping Jeff Levy around is probably the best chance to do that. I think that that's a really great point, that if Jeff Levy was offered a head coaching job, that maybe then you'd see those 26 offers go out. But maybe he is holding on to his cards until he knows more clearly whether he will or won't be doing that.
He's recruiting the heck out of them quarterbacks. Jeff Levy much more likely to get a raise than he is to get fired. Trust me on that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you said, 2 4-star quarterbacks in back-to-back classes. He was able to land a second quarterback in the 2024 class and a guy that's pretty talented in Brendan Zurbrugg. I mean, obviously 59 points last week. I agree with you. I don't think that his head's going to be on an axe, but I do think that the head coaching thing is a possibility depending on what becomes available.
Yeah, and he strikes me as the kind of guy that might just take something as it opens. He just wants to be a head coach. He just wants to run his own program, even if it's a mid-major or a minor program. He strikes me as the kind of guy that thinks he's ready to do that, and that will be his first step to becoming a major head coach, because those jobs don't open all the time. Those really good ones, like Texas A&M, for instance.
Right.
He's not going to be offered that job, obviously, but to get that job, to be a guy that gets that job, you have to be a successful coach at UTSA, for instance, right, or somewhere else, Louisiana Tech or whatever. So
something that's interesting in that, yesterday I think we kind of talked about who Mississippi State was interviewing, and while again, don't think Jeff Levy's probably right for that job,
right,
who they hire could affect Jeff Levy. If Caldwell leaves Liberty, heads to Mississippi State, Liberty's head coaching job is open. What if they call up Jeff Levy? Is that the type of job that he takes? Because that's the type of school you mentioned, that mid-major, that UTSA level program where
right.
you can have mid-major success and then get plucked by a bigger school. So I think, and I'm not necessarily saying Liberty specifically, but if a smaller school like that does get their head coach plucked for the Mississippi State job, that could be the type of role that Jeff Levy takes. I mean, even think back to UCF. If their head coach gets plucked, is that a guy is that a job that Jeff Levy would like? It's just stuff to think about.
Yeah, and while there would be people in this fan base would be saying hooray, celebrating the fact that Jeff Levy is gone and they're upset with his play calling, how can you undersell the recruiting job that he's done with some of these quarterbacks, getting them early, getting them in, getting them on board, and then they start recruiting. Those guys start recruiting their teammates.
Yeah.
His value to the program goes way beyond calling plays on Saturdays.
Yes, 100%. And I mean, again, not only recruiting those guys, but building those relationships. I mean, like we said, not only did he get Kevin Sperry to commit really early, I think Kevin Sperry was a sophomore when he committed to OU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kevin Sperry moved to Oklahoma. He moved from DFW to Oklahoma. I mean, that's
because he wants more coaching from Levy.
Right, exactly.
He wants to be around Levy. He wants to watch film with Levy every day.
Right. I mean, him and Michael Hawkins were at multiple of the Brent Venables camps to work with Levy, to get coaching from Levy. Yeah. I agree. You cannot be understated the relationship that he has in the recruiting world with these quarterbacks. And I think that, I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. I think that if he does stay at OU, that in the 26 class and, going forward, that he's still going to probably continue to recruit quarterbacks well in those classes too.
Yeah. Brent Venables is going to have to open the checkbook, get him paid this year. I think he's making around $1.8 million.
Yeah, that'll go up.
Probably going to have to exceed $2 million next year.
Yep, especially if some of these head coaching jobs do become open, just to have the potential to keep them on campus, you're going to have to
price your offensive coordinator out of a mid-major coaching job. That's how it's done. That's how Nick Saban has been able to keep guys around, and then when they're ready for a big job, they take it and they make the big money.
Yep,
simple as that. Hey, man, good stuff. Really appreciate it, Randall.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Hoof. See you in Utah tomorrow.
You bet. We'll see you tomorrow in the mountains of Utah. Can't wait. I want to thank you guys for listening as well. We'll be back next week on the AllSooners Podcast. And don't forget the post-game podcast Saturday night from the press box after the BYU game, because it is certified fresh. You can find those podcasts and all of our shows on Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, iHeart, or anywhere you get your podcasts. If you listen on an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, AllSooners.com. Just click on the player and listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And don't forget, over on YouTube, all of our shows are posted there on my channel, John Hoover Media. For Ryan Chapman, for Randall Sweet, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.